Good morning, afternoon, or evening. What a truly beautiful day it is. Wherever you are, welcome. I am your humbled host, Tony Serrano, and this is the Ph.D. in me. Hey, how's it going? Tony here. So last week's episode, we dove into what is the highest self, and we talked a little bit about intentional living. So just a quick reminder, your highest self is the part of you that is greater than your ego. It's greater than the titles. It has your best interest, your best intentions in mind, and it has no ulterior motive. What is best for you is what's best for you. It's not trying to get something out of you. There's no status, there's no ego associated. It's simply your best intention. And with intentional living, it's all about making life easier, making life simple. So you spend less time thinking and more time being. Less time planning, and more time enjoying. So if that's something that you'd like to learn, let's keep going. Today we are talking about how to turn your experience into wisdom. So really quickly, what is wisdom? So I would say there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. When you have knowledge of something. Let's take, for instance, the stove. We know the stove is hot. That is our knowledge. But until we actually touch the stove and get burned, and then we don't do it again, that's wisdom. So it's one thing to know and one thing to do. And when I think of wisdom, I also think of insight. I think of insight in action, meaning that knowledge, that your experience that you've had, you're using the lessons that you've learned to then make future decisions. I think wisdom is insight in action. And knowledge, I know it all, and yet I don't do it. I think that's arrogance, not necessarily wisdom. So wisdom is really, you put your money where your mouth is. You walk and you talk the same walk. Goes in the same alignment. There's not one difference than the other. You can actually learn the lessons from the experience that you've had, from the decisions that you've made, the mistakes that you've made, the results that you've gotten, and actually go, okay, I'm not going to do that same thing. I'm not going to repeat that behavior. And so with that, how can we turn our experience into wisdom? Because we know a lot of people in our life that have lots of experience, but what is the thing that keeps them from making that same behavior, making that same pattern? What is it? And how can we turn that into wisdom? Because ultimately, that's where we want to get with the PhD in me. Because like I said many times before, the first relationship that you must master is the relationship with yourself. And if we cannot learn to love ourselves exactly the way we are, if we cannot learn to look at the experiences that we've had, if we cannot turn those into insight, how can we become the master of ourselves, to master our emotions, to master our ego, and realize what the highest self is and the beauty that the highest self offers us? That it's not here to judge us or condemn or blame us or hurt us in any way. Our highest self is simply unconditional love. It's simply whatever we are here to tap into our potential, to share our gifts with the world, to live with passion and energy and fire and love, and have peace in our heart, and share our joy with others, and go through life with grace, go through life with ease, because there is an idea today that life is stressful. And with the PhD in me, I don't think it needs to be. I think that we can really get to a place where life is fun, even when we're going through something that's challenging. Life can still be fulfilling. It can still be full of happiness. It could still remind us and have gratitude in our hearts and have good attitudes in life. I don't think it should be stressful. I think that, when you become a parent, like, what's the point of becoming a parent if your child's going to stress you out? Really, you have to take a moment and let that sit. Or what's the point of being in a relationship if that relationship is going to stress you out? Why would we do things that are going to hurt us or harm us? There's a difference between eustress with the EU, then stress, and then there's stress. Stress is what causes dis-ease in the body. Eustress is what causes fulfillment and joy and true pleasure, not instinctual pleasure or a very low energy sense of pleasure, but a true fulfillment of life. Whereas stress, again, it can cause disease in the body. It can cause us to manifest in the physical body what our mental health and what our state of spiritual and emotional wellness is. So if we can just take a moment to sit with ourselves and realize the things that are really causing stress in our life, what is the purpose? What's the intention? And that's why I love intentional living. And that's why we're going to be going through this series of intentional living. And so today I wanted to talk about how to turn your experience into wisdom, because there is a point when you get to be an adult where you have to at some point stop making those same mistakes that you've been making. You have to grow up, as they say. And it doesn't have to be such a resistance. There doesn't have to be so much animosity towards it. It's just something that we can embrace, that we can lean into. And that my biggest thing that I love to share is that if we know what to expect, if we know that we're going to have to confront ourselves in the mirror, that we may not like what we see, that we may not even know what we see. Like, who are we? Besides the titles, besides the resume achievements, like, who are we as an authentic being, as a human being? We may not like that. And so it's okay. It's okay to not know. It's okay to not like what you see back. The journey to the Ph.D. in me is to love yourself unconditionally. That means you don't harbor resentment or harbor guilt or blame or shame. There's no humiliation when it comes to the Ph.D. in me. You're able to look back and laugh at yourself for making those same mistakes. And really, if you really take life to the very base essential of it, life is a series of choices. There's not good or bad. There's just results. There's results that maybe are more positive in your life, and some that maybe take you a little bit off this journey. So the more that you can focus on what is the purpose of your life, what is the journey, like, what are you here to do? What is your intention? Is your intention to share your joy and share your gifts with others? Is it to do that in a community setting? Is it to do that in a family relationship setting? Is it to do that for the technology and advancement of our society? Like, what are you here to do? What are you here to be about? Are you here to bring love into this world, or are you here to bring hate? Because there's really not a middle ground. Either you're playing full out or you're not playing at all. And even if you haven't really given yourself a chance to think about this, like, this is why we're here. This is why we spend some time together. This is why we talk about it, because we're just here to explore who we are, explore what we see in the mirror, and ask ourselves, if we don't like it, why? What culture and beliefs and programming and conditioning have been imposed on us that would make us not like what we see in the mirror? And when we become adults, maybe it's that environment that we grew up in, or maybe it's the environment that we work in. When we become adults, we have that power then to say, no, I don't want to be here. I don't like the way you're treating me. These are my boundaries. And I don't have to put myself in that environment anymore. You have that power to choose. Now, sometimes when you are a child, you don't have the power. You have to be in that environment. That or you run away. And I won't say that I never thought about it, because there are many moments that I did. But when you become an adult, you get to choose. So let's not forget that choice, because again, life is a series of choices. So we can make decisions that support us, to go on a path of love, or we can make decisions that will make us resent, be full of hate, animosity, even towards ourselves, like self-loathing, like, oh, I can't believe you made that mistake, and judge yourself for it. So when you take it all the way down to its base form, life is a series of choices, and some things are good and some things are bad. Now, what gets difficult and confusing is when we harbor onto the choice that we made, and then we have to go through a detour to get back on track of like what we're here to do. So we kind of meander through life, and then mental health steps in, and we can go, okay, I'm just so overwhelmed, I'm anxious, I'm worried. Or you can go, this is just too much, I'm overwhelmed and I just feel sad and I don't feel like life is for me. I don't feel like I'm gifted or talented, or that I have anything to share with the world. I don't know what my purpose is. And so when you can get stuck in those moments of sadness, in those moments of just pure, I don't know what I'm doing, just confusion, and you're lost, then life isn't so kind to you, because you're looking through life from this perspective of that sadness, of that anxious, of the worried, of the stress. But if we can remind ourselves that life is a series of choices, so that if we are continuing to make choices that are getting us to this sad state, couldn't we also make choices that would get us to a happy state? And life isn't only about happiness, but whatever it is that you feel life's about. If life is about fulfillment, then it's more than just happiness. Happiness can sometimes be fleeting. I think joy is something that stays with you all the time. I think peace and grace is something that stays with you. So if you want to go from anxious, depressed, worried, stressed out, less than, to just grace, to a baseline peace, to joy, to love, you can make those decisions that were going to get you to that result. Sometimes we beat ourselves up so bad because we can't even get that result no matter what we do. And what holds us back from that result, getting the result that we want, is number one, setting the intention. Setting the intention. What do you want in your life? I don't think we ever sit down and really go, other than maybe with our significant other, like, what do we want in our life? I don't even think in relationships we go and sit down and say, what do we expect from the other person? Not expectations necessarily, but what do we want in return? Or that there is a return, that there could be. Is it possible that we have never learned how to truly unconditionally love? Unconditional love has no restraints, has no conditions, has no judgments. Exactly how you are is exactly how I love you. And when it comes to relationships, there's still boundaries that are made, that you want to make sure the other person honors and respects you. And we have to take that time. We have to sit down. We must sit down. If you want any type of love in your life, if you want any type of peace and grace and ease, if you want life to be simple, if you want life to be heaven on earth, it's possible. But we have to sit down again. We have to get quiet. We don't give ourselves time to really sit and do nothing. Maybe we're on our phone, or maybe we're distracted, or maybe we're just so tired. Maybe we plop down in front of the TV, and I don't blame you. I really don't blame you. We have not set up a good foundation. It's true. There is not a good foundation on what unconditional love is. There's not a good foundation on how to handle and assess and observe our emotions. There's not a good foundation on how to make great decisions and how to figure out what's your purpose in life. What is your purpose? As if money were no worry, what would you do with your time? How would you spend your day? Who would you spend your time with? That's life. That's what's going to give us the healing that we need within our heart. That's what's going to help us become the Ph.D. in me, to have that relationship with ourselves. And it's being able to take a look in that mirror, to look at the experience that we've had. I talk a lot about trauma, and I've even done a series on trauma through my YouTube channel and through the podcast, that in order to truly heal your trauma, you have to go out and live life again. You have to go out and create new experiences, because your trauma is from your past. And in order to fully heal and transcend your trauma, now you're not forgetting your trauma. You're not forgetting that happened. You're learning the lessons that they were there to offer you. You're loving yourself unconditionally, and you're going, I know that I'm going to have my back in the future, in these next decisions, in these next experiences, in the next part of my life. I'm going to have my back because I know what happened, and I love myself, and it was a result, and I cannot hate myself for it. I must forgive. I must forgive myself. So to fully transcend your trauma, you have to go out and have those experiences. You have to go out and be around something that may trigger you and go, okay, I'm triggered, and one day I won't be. One day, really, when you fully heal, you can be around that thing that caused your trauma and be okay. There is this certain peace, this silence, and this stillness that you can hold space, even in times of your life that were the worst. And how you do that is through transforming and transcending those experiences into wisdom. Now, I know I've taken a little bit of a more deep approach in my example here, but it can go a little bit lighter. So we can lighten it up just a little bit, but just know that these ideas are going to come exactly the way you need to. Once you can get quiet and get focused with no distractions and really sit with yourself and be able to observe. You want to observe the experience. What result did you get? Let's say, take it for relationships. If you were trying to connect with your partner, what result did you get when maybe you said something and your partner got angry? What did you say? You have to sit down just like this. You take a breath. You don't necessarily have to close your eyes. And you just go, so what did I say that made my partner angry? And you think about it. Was it your tone? Was it the attitude? Was it your approach? That's really what it is. It's your approach. What in your approach? And then, is it personal? Is it your approach, or did you trigger them? Were they projecting something on you? Were you projecting something onto them? If we're here to invest our time in a relationship, we don't want to intentionally make our partners angry. We want to share love. We want to share space and joy and just have fun at the base of it all. So invite some grace. What grace is not that we're going to be perfect, but because of our imperfection, we're going to go with grace. We're going to go with ease. and you just go, maybe I messed up. Maybe I made a mistake in my approach. And what's beautiful about your experiences is that it's not one and done. If you made the mistake with your partner, you can go back. You can go back after you thought about it and said, it seems like my approach is not working. I have a big concern for XYZ, but anytime I bring it up, you get angry. So I'm trying to figure out, how can I communicate with you? How can I share with you this concern and you hear me? And we can be on the same page. Because ultimately, with a partnership, you want to be on the same page. So get quiet, notice what in your approach isn't working, and then ask for that feedback. You can ask for the feedback. Even in your job, if you want to take it to the career example, you can go ask your coworker or even your boss or even whoever. You can just ask them for feedback. And I did a YouTube video on how to make great decisions. And one of the first thing I mentioned is humility. So we're going to get these deeper relationships, even with ourselves, when we develop that humility. Because humility is something that you grow through experience. And it's only if you want to. It's not something that is ever forced upon you. It's only what you want. And yet that humility, that vulnerability is what brings our relationships to a deeper, more profound, more meaningful level. So when you go and you ask for that feedback, just remember and try to have an attitude of humility. And what is humility? I think it is the absence of humiliation, meaning that I am coming for your feedback in a place because I want to get better at honoring you. I want to get better at honoring you. How could you ever be embarrassed or humiliated because you want to be better? Because you want to love? Because you want to understand? Because you want to connect? You can't. You can't. Like, who would be angry? And then maybe you'll start to see that I did a series on self-sabotage, that the people in your life, the relationships that you have, they don't want to be meaningful. They don't want to get deeper. They don't want your love. They don't want your understanding. They simply want to energy vampire you, where they just suck the life out of you. They don't want to see you be successful. They don't want to see you be happy. I mean, do you know anyone in your life who it seems like they just don't want to see people succeed? It seems like they don't want to see other people happy. And those people are very tough to be around, and you don't have to be around them. Even if there's someone very close to you, you can always love people from a distance. You can always set that boundary. And that's what wisdom is. That's exactly how you turn your experience into wisdom, is where you experience that insight of, oh, they're not here for my best interest. They're not happy to see me happy. And the wisdom part is when you go, I'm going to love them from a distance. When you are going to do something about it. When you're going to do something about that knowledge that now you can see into that relationship, you're going to take the action. Insight and action is wisdom. You're going to take that action. And even if you fumble, that's how you build the wisdom. Wisdom is not something that you can ever take away from. It just builds and builds and expands and evolves. And it's just a really beautiful concept, because I talk about transgenerational trauma, and what a beautiful idea if we can transgenerational wisdom. If we can pass wisdom down from generation to generation. And it's been done. It's been done. It's just something that I think is never talked about. I think it's something that you have to get kind of lucky born into, where your family or your culture passes on wisdom. I think we're definitely passing on something, but I think it's more trauma, and I think it's more inherited. It is conditioned upon us. It is in our belief system, and we never sit down and say like, hey, you can change your beliefs, that you can live the life that you want to live. Even if you don't know what the next step is, you take the moment and you get quiet. You get focused. And you speak out loud, I don't know what I'm missing, but I'm ready to find out. I am open for my highest self to connect with me. I am open to receive all the good that is seeking to come into my life. And when you make this connection to your highest self, you're gonna hear a voice back. You're gonna hear a very silent inner voice. It's gonna start very, very quiet. And the more you connect with your highest self, the more you can be honest and sit in your truth and observe without judgment, the more that highest self, that voice is going to get louder and louder and louder and louder. And it's not going to take so much effort anymore to make wise decisions, to make great decisions, to have wisdom. It's not going to be so difficult. It's going to start to get easier and easier and easier. And that's what intentional living is where I have an intention for my life. I have an intention to have meaning, to have meaningful relationships, to make an impact, to share my gifts with the world, to be there for others with no ulterior motive. I know what it's like to be alone. I know what it's like to be shamed and ostracized and bullied and abandoned and neglected. I know what it's like to hate myself, to try to live and yet just have no feeling, to be numb, for everything to be great, to know that one day life's going to get better, but you just have no idea how. I've been there. And I don't want anyone to be there by themselves and not know what they need to do. That's the Ph.D. in me. That's going, I got you. This is what we're going to be about. This is what human beings are about, connection. So that's really my piece on how to turn experience into wisdom. And of course, this is not an unfinished conversation. These are just stepping stones. These are ideas. These are insights. And to really give you that moment to think about it, to ponder, to wonder, to get curious, to just explore and not feel like there's something you need to do when you find something. If you've noticed, I have a tattoo. It's a personal mantra that I discovered when I was meditating. And it's explore darkness and embrace silence. So the darkness is just the unknown. Darkness necessarily isn't evil or hate or negativity. It's just something that you have not explored yet. It's the unexplored, the unknown. And then when you get there, embrace silence. Embrace what you find. Lean into it with no judgment, with no condemnation, with no guilt. And love it unconditionally for whatever you find. So this next episode that I want to do next week is on how to confront yourself, how to confront your thoughts, how to confront stillness, how to confront your past results. We're not even going to call them mistakes anymore. We're going to call them results. You either liked the result or you didn't like the result. The result either honored your health or it didn't honor your health. And we're going to start to get really focused on finding our purpose. What is our purpose? Exploring who we are, even when the titles are gone, even when the status is gone, even when the ego is gone. So, with that, in light and love, namaste. Have yourself a beautiful, bright day.